Hi everyone, I've just received this game in the post from Salerno to Rome. This is a game that I backed on Kickstarter, and I thought I'd do a quick unboxing and some initial thoughts and impressions. So at the back of the box you get two 22 by 34 inch maps, and we'll have a look at those in a second. 576 counters, all the rules and different aids that you need. It's a two-player game. Sorry. They're saying solitaire suitability is sort of medium-low. I've read the rule book, and there's nothing that jumped out at me to suggest that you couldn't play this game two-handed solitaire. Interestingly, gameplay time 2 to 40 hours, which sounds awesome. And it's because you can play, to move the camera up a little bit, you can play a campaign that is both the two maps together. That I guess is the 40-hour version of the game, but there are shorter scenarios that you can play in a couple of hours by the back of the box. Anyway, probably worth noting that the game is a simulation of the first 10 months of the campaign in Italy in World War II, starting from the landing in Salerno to the liberation of Rome in June 44. And the game starts with the American 5th Army that has just landed and the British 8th advancing. So let's have a look at some of the player aids. You get a campaign game deployment aid with all the reinforcements for the Axis. It's great. Tables, a combat results table, barrage table, tactical support table, and then on the back, terrain effect charts. Looks really nice. Let's have a look at the combat results table in closer detail. So on the combat results table, and it's a ratio table. So if we look at a 1-to-1 attacker defender on 2 dice, it's a d6 game. So the average is 7. Interestingly, A1, D1, which I anticipate to mean that the attacker loses 1 step and the defender loses a step. And looks like the end of ops as well, which is interesting. Definitely looking at the chart, you want to be rolling high dice numbers as the attacker. So for example, on a, let's say 2-to-1, you've got a D2R result there. So defender takes 2 steps, loss and a retreat. Then we've got operation costs. These I skimmed, read over how these work yesterday evening. Actually, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but these are a key component of the game, how the operations work. So you get a summary for both the Axis and for the Allied as well, which is great. And then you've got the Allied reinforcement chart as well, which is great. It means that excuse me, that you can use these and place the counters specifically on them. So it's very simple, straightforward, knowing when and what to bring in as reinforcements. Yeah, it looks really good. So nice, yeah, a good stock on all these aids. They look really great, really nicely laid out. And here we have the Axis and the Allied command displays, activation points track for both of those, and the different corps as well. Again, look great. So 3 sheets of counters, the Axis counters there, Allied counters, American and British counters here, for example, and then gameplay counters. Again, a nice thick stock on the counters. Let's have a zoom in and have a look at some. So the counters look very nice and nicely clearly laid out. On my version, the trim cut, looks good. You've got a mix of NATO symbols on the counters and armour artwork, which looks great. Interestingly, the nubs that connect the counter to the sheet are in the centre of the counters, not in the corners. Got a few games that are sort of printed and finished like that, so I normally use like an emery file, nail file, just to clean those off. And you could corner cut the counters if you want. They look great. All the counter sheets look great. They're the Allies one. Really nicely laid out, very clear. The artwork looks absolutely great on the counters as well. Top job. You get this tanks and aircraft booklet, which is awesome. As most of you know, I do like tanks, and it shows you the different artwork from the counters, which is great. This is awesome. So you got different, all the different Shermans, the different camo schemes, M10s. I was looking for the New Zealand on the counters. Actually, there's an artwork for the New Zealand Armoured Brigade, Royal Scot Greys. You can tell I'm a Brit. Churchills. The artwork's awesome. It's really nice. It's really cool. Nice and clean. Really evocative, which is great. And then you've got the Axis, the German various pieces of armour. So Stugs, Panzer IVs, some Italian pieces as well. Elephant, Tigers. They look great. This is awesome little addition. Oh, the planes on the back. Yeah, let's not forget about them. Really nice. Great artwork. Absolutely great. This is awesome to have put this into the game. And it's one of those sort of things you don't need to put it in, but it just celebrates the kind of the artwork, but also the period of history. This is brilliant. And you know, full props to this new publisher putting this sort of thing into the game. It's awesome. So let's have a look at the rulebook. One thing I should have probably mentioned, the box is a little bigger than a normal sort of GMT size box. Anyway, so the rulebook it's quite a lengthy rulebook. Let's have a look how many pages. So there are the two maps laid side by side. So coming in at 23 pages of rules, which does include an awesome bibliography. A lot of the books here listed are in Italian. This is an Italian published game. This is the English version. Should have mentioned that. Ace. So I was reading the bibliography. The rulebook. Yeah, so I read through the rulebook last night before doing this. Looks nicely laid out. It's definitely a rulebook that's going to take a couple of readings, I'll be honest. It's no bad thing. It looks read pretty well, actually. So talks about the components, setup, activation points, the different phases. So you've got an operations phase, a planning phase. Yeah, so this is quite a key thing. You have a planning phase and an operations phase, which is interesting. And it's an impulse-driven game, so you're running impulses as well. These are the different operations that are executed during the impulses. So, for example, it's an operation for activating one or more Army Corps, or operations for activating divisions, through to specific operations for example, the Polish Corps activation. But it's nicely laid out. It's quite methodical, it's very thorough. Rules on stacking. Each counter has a number of dots from 1 to 3, which is the equivalent to the number of battalions forming the unit. German tank units do not have a value, roughly half a dot. And I think it's 10 dots of stacking are allowed. So 3 counters of 3 dots, for example, for the stacking. Combat is looked to be very straightforward. You're literally comparing the attack value against the defensive value, which gives you your odds ratio. You use that chart that I showed earlier, roll on that. Looked really straightforward, very playable, which looked great. Terrain obviously has an effect on combat, as does an armoured bonus, which looked quite decisive. So you pick the best armoured bonus in your stack and use that. The combat looked really straightforward, I have to say, which is great. Artillery, supply, which is obviously going to have is a deciding factor. Then you've got your reinforcements. So we're now at page 14. 14 pages of core rules, and I think they're probably counting the cover as page 1, for example, and they count the cover as page 1. So not a huge number of pages of rules, very detailed, and they read really well. Then the scenarios you get. There are a handful of scenarios. So, for example, the first scenario only uses map 2. We'll have a look at the maps in a second. And then the Salerno uses map 1. I can't remember how many turns. I think both of these scenarios are just 2 turns, but obviously there's going to be impulses within that. And then a scenario for Anzio. Oh, that's going to be great. I want to play that one first, but I'll probably play them in order. And again, Anzio is just using a smaller portion of the map and 2 game turns as well. So I will go out on a limb and say these read like these are the sort of scenarios that you can play in a couple of hours in an evening. And if you want to run the full campaign, it's going to take a little bit longer. Another scenario there, another operation, 2 turns, just using one of the maps. This one, here we go. And then the campaign game is 10 turns and using both maps. So that's the kind of the big 40-hour game, which will be great. I don't have a big enough table in this room at the minute to do that one, so I'll need to bring one of my wargaming boards in and set both maps up to do that. And I have every intention of doing so. It'd be great to set up a long-term game over the sort of course of a few weeks to play through that campaign. Then we've got some nice examples of play, showing different impulses, reinforcement phases. I read through these again last night. Help definitely. All examples of plays always help. So you got a few pages of those which look great, and the bibliography. Overall, first impressions of the rulebook, very nice, well laid out, very methodical, well written. I would say it was. I'm going to go out and say it was written in Italian first and translated. Translation looks pretty good, I'll be honest with you. Top job. It's great. Then we have map 1 here. I've just unfolded it, put it on the table. So it's literally straight out the box. Looks great. Here, I'll just move that over to the camera. You have the different impulses, turn record track, weather checks, activation points, so some game mechanic help on there. Other side bonus units. We're going to zoom in on the map and have a look, but the quality of the finish looks great. I'll be playing in Duplexi, as I'm sure nearly everyone will. Paper quality looks great, nice and thick. Looks quite durable on the creases. At this sort of perspective, you can clearly, the artwork on the map looks awesome. You can clearly see the intended terrain of each hex. Looks like there's some hex side terrain pieces as well. Roads, rivers, etc. This looks great. Entry points here. There's Salerno, Napoli. This looks awesome. Looks great. It looks really good. Then we got map 2. Yeah, much the same. Again, very clear. Hex definitions. Very, very clear. Great. Again, just the artwork's great. It's just really readable, which is awesome. It's got a really nice palette as well in the artwork. It's nicely subdued and tonally consistent, which is great. The palette choices are wonderful. I remember reading about this the other evening. Gustav, the Gustav line is definitely is a component of the game, which is awesome. There's Anzio, Roma. This looks great. Again, both maps high quality. Let's just zoom in and have a little look at some of the map artwork. So I just zoomed in a little bit, just so you can see the artwork. Yeah, it's really nice. Really, yeah, it's just really nicely done and very readable, and just invites play, which is great. So yeah, just thought I'd zoom in just to give you a good indication. But it looks great. So overall, the game looks great. Interestingly, Volume 1. So yeah, hopefully they make more games in this series. Everything looks great. I know what I'll be doing this weekend. Really looking forward to getting this game to the table. Certainly from a components point of view, it looks really, really, really good. It's great to see these sort of publishers coming out of Europe with this level of quality. Product looks awesome. Like I said, the rulebook, I read through it. Can't wait to play it. Looks very playable, and I'll probably play with some of those shorter scenarios first. Run those through a few times before tackling the big 2-map campaign, which I'm sure is predominantly. I'm really looking forward to that. I think, I love playing games that you can play in an evening, but I really do love playing games that over the course of a few weeks, leaving the game set up, which is going to be great. So yeah, thanks for watching. Top job on this from these guys. Looks awesome. I backed it on Kickstarter. I'm really pleased I did. The game looks really good. I'm really looking forward to playing this and doing a sort of gameplay review as well. Thank you.